So as I said, open today's show. Last Thursday, go back. I ranked my top 10 NFL teams under pressure going into the 2023 NFL season. Now, pressure was defined by different things. Obviously, the Jets have pressure on them to go win a Super Bowl. Obviously, the Broncos have pressure on them to go win games. So there's different levels to pressure, but I ranked my top 10 teams 10-1 in terms of who had pressure to win games and expectations to satisfy their fan bases this NFL season. As a reminder, when we come back, season 8 premiere on Labor Day, I will be giving out my official NFL predictions. And of course, right after that, best bets and money line week 1 right around the corner. But I thought today it'd be fun to go through, and we're going to look at the head coaches in the National Football League. Because I've been saying it for the last 2 years on this podcast. I do not believe there are rare exceptions, obviously, because there's an exception to every rule. But at this point in the NFL, it feels like offensive coaches and great quarterbacks are winning majority of games. They're winning Super Bowls. Offenses in the NFL are getting more clever, and defensive coaches, especially the older defensive coaches, are sticking to their roots of under center I formations, run the ball, play good defense, win the game 6-3. Doesn't cut it anymore in the NFL. So you'll notice on this list, 70% or 7 out of 10, for those of you that don't want to do math today, 70% of these coaches on this top 10 list are going to be defensive coaches. And I will keep repeating it and repeating it and repeating it. The urgency in the NFL right now is getting a star quarterback and getting the offensive side of the ball correct first. Your offensive line, your quarterback, your receivers, your tight ends. You can even throw your running back in there. The running back is becoming a less and less important position if you have a quarterback. So without further ado, you're going to see most of these teams either have really high pressure to win, or most of them are just going to get fired because they don't have a quarterback or they're not the right coach. Here we go. Top 10 NFL head coaches that are on the hot seat going into 2023. And here's a hot take to start it off. Number 10, Bill Belichick. Now, we know Bill Belichick. We all presume he is the greatest head coach of all time. We know he won 2 Super Bowls as the defensive coordinator of the New York Giants under Bill Parcells when he coached maybe the greatest defensive player of all time in Lawrence Taylor. Then he ended up getting the greatest player of all time, a quarterback in Tom Brady. But that was after he went through cycles of quarterbacks in Cleveland. Of course, Vinny Testaverde, Bernie Kosar, and then Drew Bledsoe to start his tenure off in New England. Ever since Brady left at the start of the COVID year, he's had Cam Newton for 1 year. That was the COVID year. It was a disaster. We're going to kind of throw that one out because obviously it was COVID. A lot of wacky, weird things happened in the COVID year. Then he got Mac Jones as a rookie. And under Josh McDaniels, New England, which still didn't have many good receivers, by the way, they haven't had a good wide receiver number 1 since Randy Moss. But Mac Jones put up good numbers. They were able to run the ball, good 2 tight end sets. They made the playoffs. And then they went up against a juggernaut in the Buffalo Bills, who had a great offensive coordinator who would soon become the New York Giants head coach in Brian Daboll. Buffalo beat them by 30 in a snowstorm, and New England gave up 47 points. Then last year, after losing Josh McDaniels, the head coaching position of the Las Vegas Raiders, Bill Belichick decided to put defensive coordinator Matt Patricia as his offensive coordinator. And that did not go well. New England missed the playoffs, and Mac Jones severely regressed. Now, this year, they brought in a new offensive coordinator, a guy that worked under Belichick when Brady was there, Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien was great in college under former Bill Belichick disciple Nick Saban. But now he's back in the NFL. And the Patriots' number 1 and number 2 wide receivers are Juju Smith-Schuster, who could not get any separation in his life other than when he was with the great Andy Reid in Kansas City, and Devontae Parker, who statistically over the last 3 years, every single one of those 3 years, has had the lowest separation rate against press coverage in the National Football League. That is what Mac Jones is working with. New England selected guards, kickers, and defensive linemen. No tight ends, no receivers, no offensive identity to help Mac Jones. It's going to be the same thing, folks. They're going to win 6 to 7 games in their defense alone. Mac Jones is going to look terrible. They're going to be the slowest team in the league again. They're going to look like they're from 1990. And when asked about Bill Belichick's job security, whether he is in New England to pass Don Shula with the most amount of wins in the history of the National Football League, Robert Kraft said he just wants Super Bowl number 7. And Rob, unless somehow Bill Belichick comes to his senses and realizes he needs to completely modernize his offense to the modern game, and that may even include getting rid of Mac Jones and going to get a mobile quarterback, you're not going to get Super Bowl number 7. And, we've seen it, egos and dynasties. That's what always happens with dynasties. People want the credit. Brady obviously went to Tampa and won a Super Bowl on his own. Belichick wants to prove he can win a Super Bowl without Brady in New England. I think Belichick could probably win another Super Bowl, but I don't think it's going to be in New England. Number 9, Mike McCarthy of the Dallas Cowboys. Now, Mike McCarthy is pretty low on this list compared to some of these other coaches, but there's always going to be some pressure on Mike McCarthy because he is the coach of quote-unquote America's team. But there's a little bit more pressure on him this year because offensive coordinator Kellen Moore is now the offensive coordinator of the Los Angeles Chargers. And Mike McCarthy is going to take over play calling for the first time in 4 years. This obviously being the 3rd year he was with Dallas, and then his off year once he got fired from Green Bay. It sounds like they're going to change the verbiage. They're going to change the offense. It sounds like it's going to be a lot like what Mike McCarthy ran in Green Bay under Aaron Rodgers. I think it's going to take a little bit of time for Dak and Dallas to adjust. And Mike McCarthy wanted Kellen Moore out the door. Mike McCarthy wanted to be a play caller again because I think he was sick and tired of people like me saying all he does is stare at the ceiling and look like he's sleeping. If Dallas somehow plummets this year, and especially considering the weak state of the NFC, will Jerry Jones make a move? Will comfortable, old, rigid Jerry Jones, a lot like old, comfortable, rigid Bill Belichick, will Jerry make a move and fire Mike McCarthy? Only time will tell, but he's certainly under a little bit of pressure. Now, he would have been higher if the news of a contract extension did not come out, but I'm going to put Sean McDermott here in the Buffalo Bills. Listen, I had a little bit of a hot take at the end when the Bills lost that Cincinnati game, obviously in the divisional round this past season. I would have fired Sean McDermott. I think he has ran his course in Buffalo. Buffalo, over the last 3 years, has technically gone backwards. 2020 COVID year, they went to the AFC Championship game. They faced Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. They could not get it done. They were not ready for the moment. Okay. The year after that, they should have beat Kansas City in the divisional round, and everybody in Buffalo thought that was the year they're going to go to the Super Bowl. Yeah, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, and Patrick Mahomes happened, and they watched one of the top 5 craziest NFL games of all time. And then last year, they're at home in a snowy, blizzardy condition against Cincinnati. And yes, Cincinnati is outdoors, but you are also outdoors and you're home. Bills Mafia, you have an equal quarterback, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. You have an equal amount of weapons. Your defense on the front side is probably better than Cincinnati's. Cincinnati just played a tough, grueling divisional round game against Baltimore. You had to play a little bit of an easier divisional round game because you had to go up against Skylar Thompson and the Miami Dolphins. And yet Buffalo completely laid an egg. And at the end of last year, offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey did not seem to know what he was doing. And Josh Allen regressed without Brian Daboll. Now, obviously, the Bills just gave him and their GM Brandon Beane a contract extension amidst the Stephon Diggs drama, which, by the way, I do believe the Diggs drama is a factor. It's why I've changed my divisional prediction, and I've said this already. I would have been a spoiler, but I got Miami over Buffalo in the division because of it. I still think Buffalo can make the playoffs, but if this thing goes sideways, I don't care about Sean McDermott's contract extension. Buffalo's not going to trade Josh Allen, so who's going to go that being the coach, Sean McDermott. And he's a defensive coach, and you need an offensive coach, I believe, to help elevate Josh Allen in 2023. Number 7 is Matt Eberflus. Now he's got a star in Justin Fields. Now Matt Eberflus and the current GM, I believe his name's Ryan Poles. They did not draft Justin Fields. That was under the previous regime with head coach Matt Nagy, and I believe the GM was Ryan Pace. So you could say the pressure on Justin Fields to play well. Now, Fields was not that great of a passer last year, but he did not have many weapons. The addition of DJ Moore is really going to help that offense out. But this is going to be year 2 of Eberflus. And if they're the worst team in the league again, if Fields does play well, which I think he's going to have a better year, but they don't win games, you might say, you know what? Let's take the Miami approach like they did with Brian Flores, who again was a very good defensive coach. They won games, but Tua literally looked like a bust under Brian Flores. Let's get an offensive-minded coach and Mike McDaniel. And I don't know, when Tua's healthy, turn him into an MVP candidate. That could be what Justin Fields gets. I think he needs better coaching. I don't think Luke Getsy is a bad offensive mind. I just think Eberflus and that staff is very conservative. They're not going to let, the tires loose on Fields like I think he would be under an offensive coach that would expose more of his dynamicism, if you will. So I got Matt Eberflus at 7. If things go wrong in Chicago, Eberflus is out, I believe, before Justin Fields, though we don't know truly if Justin Fields is a franchise quarterback yet or not. Me personally, I'm really 50-50. I'm on the fence. Number 6 is Ron Rivera. There is a reason why Washington brought in Eric Bieniemy as their offensive coordinator this year. Ron Rivera realizes he has to win. Sam Howell or not, he has to win or he's not going to have a job. How many times have I told my friend Austin Arnold, great Washington Commanders fan, when he's come on the show for the last 2 years, I've said I would fire Ron Rivera. He's old, he's rigid, he had a good run with Cam, but that feels like a decade ago, and it pretty much almost was. And in Washington, he has never been able to get the quarterback right. He got it right for 1 year with Alex Smith in a wonky COVID year where Dak Prescott got hurt and the Giants were terrible and the Eagles were dealing with personal problems with Carson Wentz and Doug Peterson upstairs. And, it's been a rotating door for Washington, and it's about to be 4-year tenure. Alex Smith, Taylor Heineke, Kyle Allen, I'm forgetting. I think, did they have Chase Daniel at one point? I think Dwayne Haskins was there 1 year for Ron Rivera. Rest in peace, Dwayne Haskins. So they've gone through so many quarterbacks. Now, from what I've seen out of Sam Howell, I think he can play. And I think Eric Bieniemy is going to get that offense up to speed. Great weapons, Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, Brian Robinson out of the backfield. Decent offensive line. We know what they have up front with Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne, Chase Young. Washington is a really good built roster. They need about one more offensive lineman, maybe a tight end, and some secondary work and just some overall winning and maturity. But Ron Rivera is to turn it around. If not, he's going to get blamed, and I can see Eric Bieniemy taking that head coaching spot. Very similar. Number 5 is Todd Bowles. Now, Todd Bowles replaced Bruce Arians in Tampa Bay. We know that was very controversial because we know Bruce Arians did not want to leave the sideline, but Brady wanted him to leave the sideline, so him and Byron Leftwich could run the show. Well, Byron Leftwich is gone. Obviously, Brady is gone. Todd Bowles felt like he was on borrowed time last year when he won that horrible division at 8-9 with a very talented team that, for the most part, underachieved. You still got Mike Evans. You still got Chris Godwin. You still got Shaq Barrett. You still got Levante David. You still got some of those corners back there. Like, I like Tampa's roster a lot. A lot of people say the issue, and I agree with this, is going to be Baker Mayfield, a quarterback. I think Tampa wants a stopgap. I don't think they want to win that much. That's why they signed Baker. They want to, kind of show the motion they're going to win. Even though they're not going to win a lot, they're going to tank for Caleb Williams. And at no fault of his own, Todd Bowles is going to be fired Todd Bowles is a very good defensive coordinator. He's not a very good head coach. He'll find a job somewhere, but I'm sorry, the writing is on the wall here. At the end of the year, Tampa's going to try to get Caleb Williams or Drake May out of North Carolina. Again, a good roster that one of those kids can come in there, I believe, even if they trade one of the older pieces like a Mike Evans or a Chris Godwin, get something back, and still in a bad division, I think you could compete very quickly. But Bowles is going to be out at the end of the year. Number 4 is Josh McDaniels, who, very interestingly enough, I think it's likely he could be out at the end of this year. His second go around as a head coach was supposed to be a lot better than what it has been so far. And the Raiders last year had Derek Carr. They had Josh Jacobs, who almost led the league in rushing. They had Davante Adams. They had Darren Waller. They had Hunter Renfrow. And they could not move the ball on offense. They couldn't whack anybody. Their offensive line was okay, and yet they couldn't whack anybody, and they couldn't stop anybody because they did have 2 pass rushers, Maxx Crosby, Chandler Jones. Chandler Jones was seemingly always hurt. They could not get after the quarterback. And we saw Derek Carr, who was with the Raiders organization, Oakland and Vegas, for a long time, pretty much blast Josh McDaniels, saying the Raiders had no idea what they were doing. And Davante Adams has basically asked for a trade and saying Josh McDaniels' offense is like reading Chinese. He said it's very complicated, and the only player that ever figured it out really was Tom Brady. McDaniels is very intense. I thought he was going to learn his lesson from his first time being head coach in Denver after going to New England, but McDaniel seems very aloof, very picky. He obviously turned down the Colts job, and it feels like this Vegas job. Yes, they signed Jimmy Garoppolo, but Jimmy Garoppolo hasn't even passed their physical. Now, as of right now, they do have some nice pieces on the roster. I think they're going to win games in a very tough division. But if Vegas is in your top 3, top 4, big territory, are you going to let McDaniels handpick his quarterback again? Or are you going to get a new voice in there, a new regime? Again, it's been very turbulent in Vegas, and sort of let McDaniels go back to New England on his merry way, and maybe McDaniels a fresh start, new offensive mind in New England. You send Belichick upstairs and you give McDaniels that New England operation. That I could see very well happening. Number 3 on this list is Kevin Stefanski, and this is very simple. The Browns this year, if the AFC wasn't so tough, the Browns would have to make the playoffs. However, when you look at, the Bills, the Dolphins, the Jets, Cincinnati, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Jacksonville, Kansas City, Chargers, Broncos, what I named there, something 7, 8 teams. It's not including the Browns, not including New England, not including Vegas, not including Indy, not including Houston. Like, the AFC is pretty freaking loaded. And so I don't think the Browns need to win games. But ever since the COVID year where Stefanski won Coach of the Year, the Browns won 11-5, obviously, and made the divisional round and played Kansas City. Stefanski's gone backwards every single year. He essentially tore the relationship with him and Baker Mayfield. Him, Jimmy Haslam, Andrew Berry went out. They went to that, on Jimmy's private jet. They went and got Deshaun Watson. It was a disastrous year offensively for the Browns. Good starts always, bad finishes. It was good scripting early by Stefanski, bad adjuster by Stefanski. Very run-centric, very tight end-centric. It sounds like they're going to change the offense this year to be more shotgun, more pass-heavy, Deshaun Watson oriented, which is, again, what modern day NFL football is about. I like to hear that. I don't even think the Browns need Nick Chubb. They already got rid of Kareem Hunt. I think next year Nick Chubb could potentially be a surprise trade piece as well if you want to get another receiver and build more around Watson. I would love this team a lot more if they had DeAndre Hopkins. I still don't think Amari Cooper's the number 1. I think he's a very phenomenal number 2. I think he's a sort of average / below average number 1. That sometimes can make all the difference in this league when your great number 2 can't separate if he's a number 1. Amari Cooper has games on the road where he strangely disappears. And with their competition, there's a lot of the things that are going against the Browns, but their roster is great. Their new coordinators, Jim Schwartz, defensively is going to do a great job. Bubba Ventrone on special teams is going to do a great job. And the Browns have to win games this year. Deshaun Watson has to look like he's a semblance of his time in Houston, because otherwise Kevin Stefanski will be looking for another job come 2024. The next two are pretty obvious. Number 2, Robert Saleh. Obviously, there's no one to say about the Jets. He did win 7 games last year without a quarterback, but expectation in New York is going to be basically Super Bowl or bust when you have 1 or 2 years with Aaron Rodgers. So even when you're in that division with Mike McDaniel, with McDermott, with Belichick, who 2 of the 3, by the way, are on this odd seat list, even when you're in that gauntlet of the AFC, even when Aaron Rodgers has never dealt with the receivers before in the Jets, you like your young talent, you don't want to waste them. And if it does not work out with Aaron Rodgers and they're a bad football team, a lot like Tampa was last year with Brady, then Robert Saleh is not going to keep his job, and probably neither is Joe Douglas, and the Jets are going to have to blow it up and try to find another quarterback. That's just the way the NFL works. And number 1 is the most obvious on this list. Easily the number 1 head coach in the hot seat going into next year is Brandon Staley of the Los Angeles Chargers, who did it once again last year when he blew that humongous lead against the Jacksonville Jaguars in the wild card round. This will now be year 3 for Brandon Staley, year 4 for Justin Herbert, who is, by the way, possibly a top 5, top 6 quarterback in the NFL. You have Keenan Allen, you have Mike Williams, you have all the weapons in the world. Great left tackle Rashawn Slater. Their defense, which Staley is a defensive-minded head coach, started to come around at the end of last year. But when you have that tremendous talent in Herbert and you're over 1 in the playoffs, and the way you lost that, and the way you lost the previous year against the Raiders, when you could have taken a tie and gotten into the postseason, instead the Raiders kicked the field goal and sent the Chargers home. Yeah, Brandon Staley, defensive-minded head coach, for a guy in Justin Herbert who needs an offensive-minded head coach or a very good offensive coordinator, which he's going to get with Kellen Moore. The Chargers are one of the top 5 rosters in the NFL. They're right up there with Kansas City, Philly, Buffalo, Cincinnati, San Francisco. They should be right there as a top 5, top 6 team in the NFL this year. The division's going to hurt their record a little bit, but they're a very dangerous team that's used to playing on the road because they don't have many hometown fans. And they do not win at least a playoff game or 2 this year, Brandon Staley will be packing his bags and not returning to the Charger facility anytime soon. So my top 10 NFL head coaches under pressure in 2023 are Bill Belichick, Mike McCarthy, Sean McDermott, Matt Eberflus, Ron Rivera, Todd Bowles, Josh McDaniels, Kevin Stefanski, Robert Saleh, Brandon Staley. Let me know who you would swap out down below. Like that clip from the Brandon Sports Podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brandon Sports Podcast right here on YouTube.